And we're live.
All right, welcome back to a World Strong's Opinions, episode 53 with Nick Guardione.
What's up, guys?
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, man.
Welcome.
We've already been talking a bit.
Yep.
I don't know if we can circle back
Yeah.
and recover what we've been talking about. Let's start back with it sounds like you're working towards next show is the Arnold.
The Arnold, yep. So I got my pro card at Nationals this year. And so now I qualified for the Arnold for the first time. Because last time I was at Nationals was in 2021 and I bombed hard. So I didn't even qualify for the Arnold. So this is my first and last time at Arnold Amateurs. So I'm going in to make it count.
Yeah, man, you got a little time now. I mean,
Yeah.
had some time to train. Still got a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Had about a month-long off season, so not too much time, but they released the entry form this week, so we have like a rough idea of like what the events are going to be. So we're just going to try and slowly fade into Arnold prep now.
We're done.
I was hoping that we would have a little bit longer off season so I could work on deadlift and squat and some other things, but with a nice long, like 3-month prep, it should be okay anyway.
Sure. What is an off season in strongman?
Yeah, cardio basically.
Cardio.
Yeah,
Nice.
just a ton of volume.
Yeah.
For us, basically, it's looking back on the competition season and seeing where we could improve. Whether it's the cardio, whether it's the press, whether it's the deadlift, or just the competition experience, and we'll try and hammer that with whatever tools that we have during whatever time we have. So the off season usually is only a month or two, and you just kind of work on the stuff that you don't really get to when you're in a prep. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, that's kind of what we focus on.
We're done. I'm kind of being a little facetious when I ask that. I'm like, whenever people talk about off season and strongman, I'm like, is there really an off season?
Yeah.
Though?
I mean, we go just as hard,
like
just as intense as if we're in a prep. So
yeah,
we don't really get a break. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like off season is like the small amount of time in between each show. Like you might get a week or a month, right?
Yeah,
like other sports get like months of off season.
Yeah.
Strongman gets like a week. Intermittently throughout the year because there's no set schedule of competition.
Yeah. Past couple of years I've gotten like a 3-month off season. And it's every time I've come out of a 3 months off season, I feel like a whole new athlete. Like the cardio is just on the next level, the strength's on the next level. This is actually the first time we've only had a month for off season, because as soon as that last competition for the year is done, we'll just jump straight into like off season work. But I don't know if you guys do that, but I'll take a week off of even going into the gym after a show.
Yeah, typically, I mean, I guess for me, it depends on how close the next show is.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I can, absolutely. I'm like, after OSG, I'm saying I'm going to take a month off. I don't know if that's going to be completely out of the gym, but it's going to be a very big deload, chill. I'm not going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I might go 2 or 3, right? Go back to the basics, right? Start working on plyos, cardio, conditioning, mobility.
Like Austin and I, even when we're in prep, we're only training 3 days a week. So I don't know, and I have some lighter weight athletes too that, they're like, yeah, man, I'm not really fatigued. Like, the workouts are hard, but I can definitely take, 1 or 2 more during the week. So I think it's a body weight thing too. Like if you are a little bit lighter, you can definitely take a lot more training volume because it takes less time for your body to recover.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I've actually found too, and I always kind of struggle with like, is it because I'm getting older or because I'm getting stronger? Maybe a bit of both. Yep. Less is definitely more. The only reason I'm training 5 days a week right now is because there's a little bit of a mental game there that I have a lot of ground to cover. Typically, I don't train as intensely as I have been because I'm with you. I mean, a 3-day training week, less stimulus is a lot more, I think, how do I want to say this? More recovery, less stimulus is actually leads to better gains, and it has for me in the past. And I'll probably get back to that after OSG. Now that I feel like I've rebuilt a good base going into the next competition. But yeah, I mean, there's Mike Westerling is well known for, his 3-day training week with his athletes, and he's produced some amazing athletes over the years. So I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that 3-day training weeks are actually really beneficial for strongman.
Yeah, and it's like our workouts are 4 hours sometimes. So like we're going through multiple events, accessories, cardio, all in one session, and then by the time we're done with the session, we're fried. Gym's closed. We're the last ones out. And luckily we got a recovery sponsor, Evolve Human Recovery Labs here in San Antonio. They have a great facility for ice baths and all kinds of recovery stuff. It's amazing.
Nice.
So we'll go there on the weekends and hot and cold. Sit in the massage chairs that are like big enough for us. They have literally every tool for recovery you could possibly think of. It's fantastic. So that's been a huge help.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, we've got stuff like that here too. It's just too far away. It's like downtown Denver.
Yeah, it's kind of been out of my price range too, because like Austin's sister used to work at this like cryo place where they would put you in a little tank and it would fill up with liquid nitrogen or whatever, and it would freeze you for a couple minutes, and just that alone was like $100 for like 2 minutes of the cryo. But Evolve is super affordable. I mean, it's fantastic.
That's awesome. What do you think about cryotherapy? I mean, versus actually sitting maybe a little longer in an ice bath?
I don't like it. It's bullshit.
Yeah.
At least for me. And I think really for anybody like over 200 pounds, you're not going to get the kind of deep cold that you need to get any benefit. Like I don't know the science. I mean, I don't. Obviously this is just from personal experience, but the amount of like inflammation and other benefits that I personally feel when doing an actual ice bath is much higher.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's gimmicky.
Yeah,
it's like an infrared sauna.
Yeah,
it's gimmicky like this, right? I mean, the science could be completely skewed, right? It could be sponsored by the people that sell cryo cold therapy, right? Just like the infrared saunas, and they make up a bunch of bullshit that it's not really true, and people buy it, right? And
more than that too, it's the mental aspect. So like when you go into the ice bath place and you're like looking at that big tub of water and you're like, I do not want to do this, and you get in anyway, and you go through multiple rounds. Like there's a certain level of like accomplishment that comes with that, and mental fortitude that you kind of take with you into the next week. So it's kind of I use it as like a momentum building process. Like if I can overcome this, all those little wins kind of stack up. Absolutely. And you take them into training and you feel good. And
I was I actually think there is good science behind ice baths. But I've always kind of looked at them that way too. Like they really build, kind of like you said, that fortitude, perseverance, like the ability to overcome, right? Which is really pivotal to strongman.
Yeah.
Because
strongman is basically all just pain endurance.
Exactly.
That's the whole sport.
Exactly. Yeah. I've done cryo like once, I think, or twice. And I kind of I felt like it was very similar to like the infrared sauna. It just wasn't as cold as an ice bath, right? It was kind of like it was light cold.
Yeah,
very light cold.
I think for larger people, the best ones are like US Cryotherapy does it, where it's the whole body, like it's a fridge that they can get the whole thing down. Because realistically, those tube ones, at least for like people who are larger at all or take up the space, you don't have enough air circulation. So it's essentially just all leaving.
Yeah.
So those ones I like a bit more, but they usually are more expensive. And like the fact of the matter is, an ice bath, like 100 pounds of ice is still going to be cheaper than your average $40 cryotherapy session. Which is insane for a 3-minute process. Like nitrogen's not that expensive. At least I feel like it should be.
And especially if you're doing it at your house, like if you just go to the gas station and buy bags of ice, it's still going to be cheaper than going to the cryo place. But
Right.
if you go to places like Evolve, like they have everything set up, and not only are you paying to get in there for the ice baths, but they've got so much other like utilities that you can use. They got a sauna that you can do. You heat up in between rounds of ice baths. Like they have everything. So.
Yeah, that's what we do at my gym. Haven't done it in a minute, but they got a nice Finnish sauna, right? Dumping the water on the rocks. It gets crazy hot.
Yeah.
And then we'll just do like really hot sauna and jump out to the ice. Or when it's winter, last year was snowing, I went and did basically naked snow angels in the snow, which is actually funny because that was way colder. Like that was brutal. I went and like rolled in the snow. I was just in my shorts, like that's it.
Yeah.
And rolling in the snow and goofing off doing snow angels. I'm like, that sucked. And then I went and I jumped into the ice bath. The ice bath was warmer than the snow.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was nuts.
Eventually, because heavy metals, we're about to expand. Like we're getting ready to kind of redo the yard, take over one of the units next to us in the little shopping mall that we're in. And so we're planning to expand. But eventually, what we want to do is like behind the office, we're going to put like a podcast room, but also like a recovery room for the athletes. So like ice bath, little sauna, and I feel like that would be so good.
Yeah,
like we're dying in 105-degree heat after a big deadlift session. Just go take an ice bath.
Yeah, man. You got to do the Finnish sauna, though. I can't stress that enough.
What's the difference between the Finnish sauna and, because I think they have like a
infrared
Danish sauna?
Oh,
like
I guess I don't know. I would imagine they're the same.
Yeah.
Like, but I mean, the sauna is a Finnish. I mean, at least I think they take a lot of credit for that. I mean, sauna, again, the Finns say sauna. The sauna culture is pretty big in Finland, and a lot of good saunas are made in Finland. And I think typically when you're looking for that style of sauna, it's referred to as a Finnish sauna. So I don't really know. I would imagine they're very much the same. And a lot of it just kind of boils down to like literally, having the heat range up to 190 plus degrees, having the rocks that you spoon water over to create the humidity. Alternative, I mean, they have steam rooms, which are really disgusting in the United States. Right? I mean, there's nothing worse than going and breathing chlorinated freaking hot steam, right? That just destroys my lungs. And then the infrared saunas that are just awful because they only get to like 140 degrees. You'll sweat a little bit, but the whole gimmicky thing is that the infrared rays are penetrating. They're actually penetrating your skin into your muscles, and that's what's actually the benefit. It's not the heat. And I'm like, every time I've used one, I'm like, that was a waste of my time.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, terrible. So yeah, I guess I always just reference Finnish sauna because that's like the nice wooden cedar. I think is what most of them are made out of, cedar or something similar. With the rocks, the steam, right? The loud.
Because there's that famous picture of I think one of the Burger Kings in Helsinki in Finland, they actually have a sauna. So it's like Burger King branded and everything, but there's like the pot with the rocks and everything.
That's hilarious.
So you're like,
that's awesome. And
burger while you're dripping sweat.
Yeah, and they get naked with each other, and it's like it's all good and drink beer. Like I've been to Finland a couple of times. I've got a friend there, and he's telling me, he's like, come to Finland, and we're gonna go do some naked sauna and drink beer.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Cold beer and the hot sauna, man.
Yeah. Sounds like a good time.
There it is.
Nice. That's amazing.
Fully branded.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
That's
it's
hilarious.
like they love their saunas over there in Finland.
They do. So they really, really do. Like there's I'm not an authority on it by any means, and I don't quite understand the nuances of Finnish sauna culture, but there's, in the best of my understanding, and I don't know, about like flamenco. Flamenco is not just a style of music, like it's a whole way of life and culture. And there's like these nuanced like vibes and everything that come with flamenco. And to the best of my understanding, so laula is like steam, but it's also sort of like the method at which you maintain the consistency of steam, and it's this cultural kind of like vibey thing that I really want to go back and get involved and like really understand. Yeah, it's like a really rich culture in Finland.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sounds pretty awesome.
Yo, dude, it really sounds awesome. I've been to Finland twice and I've never like fully had that experience. And I'm like, and I didn't really learn about a lot of it until after my last time there. And I'm like, man, I've got to go back. I got to go back and I have to understand this.
Yeah, my bucket list show is the Magnus for Magnuson, because it's just out and it's raw. It's just so brutal. I love it. I have to do the Magnus at some point.
Yeah.
It's like a dream show for me.
Hell yeah, man. You got to go and carry the Husafell at least once.
Yep.
Of course.
Yep.
But yeah, there's some great shows around the world that probably don't get enough exposure. And I feel like the Magnuson Classic is probably one of them that
cool.
It gets a little bit of exposure, but it doesn't get enough.
Well, I think that like strongman community now is just so like, they want the perfect log, rogue log, all this equipment. It's like sort of fading into that, the powerlifting territory where everything has to be calibrated and just right. Dude, like, let's just go lift some natural stones. You know what I mean? Chuck them as far as we can, lift them over our head, carry them around. That's what strongman is. And like, that's something that I'm interested in too. I think that's just gangster,
Yeah. Hell yeah. I mean, especially like I'm a little sort of in favor. We talk about this a lot on the show of having some standards for world records, at least.
Yeah.
But you're right. When it comes to just competition, dude, that's what makes strongman is the variety. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as everybody's using the same implements, right? Yep. But yeah, I mean, manhood stones. Again, I don't know why I haven't done this yet. I dream of going and attempting. I mean, you got to attempt the real Husafell stone, Husafell Iceland, right? All of the stones across Scotland, Ireland, Norway's got a lot of stones. Actually, here in the United States, Ryan Stewart with Black Flag in Utah. I don't know if a lot of people are aware of this, but he's gone out and staked stones around Utah and has geolocations for all of them, trying to create or recreate maybe a similar series of man stones in the United States. That's something that I would really like to go out and do someday. And if you don't follow Ryan Stewart, you should. He's so he was a pro Highland Games thrower. I think he might have even done strongman way back in the day. He's really, really into Basque stone lifting right now, which is another just phenomenal sport that doesn't get enough exposure. It's one of those things that I've never understood how it didn't make its way into strongman. But he's really into a lot of that stuff. He does a lot of natural stone lifting. I know he's been to Iceland. I'm pretty positive he's done all across Scotland. You got to go follow him. He's just like, if you're really into that stuff, he's a great source of information.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got super lucky. David, who owns Sticks and Stone, he made the Husafell replicas. And we got to use them at Gabe Pena's Beerstone program last year. I ended up winning that event, but it was heavy. That's a heavy slab of rock right there.
Right.
But they're just perfect. They're concrete replicas of the Husafell, and they're fantastic.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
David is so great with the stuff he makes. Like, it's nice seeing his name everywhere and stuff. Getting to see him down when I went to the Metal Mayhem show.
Yeah, like we talk so much shit to each other, David and I, but like behind his back, he makes some good stuff. I'll never say it to his face.
Did you guys see that the Husafel world record was recently broken?
Mm-mm.
So it was I think it was actually at the Magnuson Classic this year. I might be wrong on that, but I think that's where it was.
I think so. There was the guy that had it from last year at the Magnuson, Yakush or whatever. He was like a half a meter away from breaking his world record this year. I don't think that guy broke it, so it may have been somebody else.
So actually, it might not be an open. I wonder if it wasn't a 105. So it was a guy from Lithuania. Hold on. Maybe it was from last year. I thought it was just recently broken, 83.9 meters, but I guess Half Thor still carried it further. So I don't understand the record. Who carried the stone?
Maybe it's like a Magnus record or something.
It must be, because it's the Magnuson Classic competition. Maybe that's what it was. Maybe I misunderstood, because I just saw it here recently. I thought it was from this year, but it says 2022.
Yeah, it was broken last year.
This was a Lithuanian born.
Yeah. He's a Lithuanian, but he lives in Iceland now.
Right. Vilius Jokic. I don't know how you say his last name.
Yeah, so he trains at Magnus's gym in Iceland, and he broke it last year, and then he competed again at the Magnus this year, and he was like a half a meter. He was like inches away from breaking it again this year. But it was like raining, and so like he got to the world record again while the Husafel was wet, which is crazy.
Maybe that's what I saw, was that he hit it again.
It was super close, but he didn't he literally basically matched it, but the Husafel was wet.
That's insane.
Yeah, the ground was right. Matched the world record. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I saw that it was raining. So yeah, I guess I'm a little out of the loop on that, but still, pretty freaking incredible.
And if you watch his speed, because I watched that video, those are the kind of events that I excel in a little bit. But he takes his time, he stands up, and as soon as he stands up, he's sprinting with that thing. It's 410 pounds on your chest, and he is running with it. I've never seen a man's feet move that fast. It's hilarious.
Right.
But he just doesn't stop. He does 2 full circles around the pen before he even starts slowing down. It's unbelievable.
But when he hit the wall, though, he definitely. I'm like that. I think a lot of people may be like that. I can when I hit a brick wall, man, it hits hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's why they call it the wall.
Right. Yeah. Here it is. It was actually 83.61 meters this year in the rain.
Yep. And I think
rain, snow, whatever it is.
I think the record from last year that he set was 81.65 or something.
This is 83.9.
Yeah.
From last year.
So he's super close.
Right. That's insane still. I mean, considering
a foot.
He's definitely not the size of a Half Thor.
Yeah.
Not even close.
He's kind of tall. You can tell he's a little tall, but
right.
He ain't no 6'10", you know what I mean? 400
pounds. Or 450 pounds. So that's amazing. I would love to go out and give that thing a try.
That would be amazing. In general, it would be nice to travel over there because, like you said, the prices are pretty reasonable.
So I'm getting married next year, and we're going to Iceland for our honeymoon.
Hell yeah, man! That's amazing.
Nice. For my honeymoon. Yeah.
Heck yeah! I've been fortunate to spend 24 hours in Reykjavik because a flight was canceled.
Well, so apparently, what we're doing, we don't have anything booked yet, so I don't know if this is 100% true, but I was told Iceland is trying to drum up more tourism. So
they are.
If you fly through Iceland Air, because all my family's in Italy, so we want to go see them for part of our honeymoon. So we're going to fly to Italy. But if you fly with Iceland Air, you can do like a 7-day layover
Oh yeah.
in
Nice.
Iceland. So you basically book one flight, have a layover in Iceland. You can explore, you can hang out, whatever you want to do, and then they'll continue on to your real destination or
That
whatever.
would be amazing. I've flown Iceland Air twice. They're a really nice airline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
General flying overseas is better than most domestic flights.
Dude.
Well, it's required by law. You have to have full meals and TVs and shit. So.
Oh yeah, like I mean, even like the nuance of getting on a plane in Europe and they play nice music while you're like just waiting is so just contrasted to the United States, where they have no air flowing. It's just brutally hot and and stagnant.
Yeah.
Everybody's miserable. Yeah.
Well, it's all about profits and, maximizing economy and all this kind of stuff. But pretty much everywhere else in the world, it's like they care about the experience. They care about, the customer's perceived value and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, it's just a cultural thing. Like America, like it is great in a lot of ways, but in a lot of ways it also has degraded pretty far in the past past 30 years.
Which is bizarre because like cars are so much better now than they were and stuff, and cars just keep getting better. Whereas planes now, now there's basic economy where you have to pay for any kind of leg room. There's like the seats are even closer together. Like I was looking at one flight recently, they were like the difference between like having like 18 inches of leg room and like 22 inches was the difference of like $100 or something.
Yeah. Well, I did a Spirit Airlines flight last year. And I literally couldn't even sit down in the seat because it was like a fully fiberglass seat, so you couldn't recline.
Oh, that's just
and the side rails were part of the seat. So what I have to do now is before I even sit down, is I got to lift, the little armrest on a plane and then lift the aisle seat armrest so I can kind of spill out both sides.
Right.
But on Spirit Airlines, it's all one, and you can't recline.
Yeah,
so
Frontier's like that too.
I physically couldn't even sit in the seat. So like I'm sitting there on the armrests and like with my little seatbelt on, and the flight attendant lady comes out. She's like, "Yeah, that's not going to work." And she like moves me to first class. She
nice.
Or she moved me to the emergency exit, and she was like had to move people around. So like the poor lady that was like all comfortable and happy in the emergency exit, she was like, "Yeah, you got to get up and let this ogre sit there."
Well, that's awesome. I mean, that's at least decent customer service.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think they legally could have taken off with me not physically in the seat. So I think maybe it would have been a liability.
I mean, the alternative though, well, I guess if you can't lift the armrest, I don't know what the hell they do.
Yeah.
Kick you
there was no way I could even work myself down. Like it was like on bone.
That sucks. Gross. And that was it. Like the only good thing that came out of like post COVID was like really cheap plane tickets for like a year. And then they skyrocketed again.
Yeah.
That's how you knew it was like fully over. It's like plane tickets going back up. Because for a while you'd get like those insane ads that are like $75 one way or something.
Oh, all the way across the country.
Like, that's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
that's like the real that's what the real plane ticket prices should be. That like everything else from there on is just profit to the company now.
Right. Well, and I mean they should profit, but I think there's definitely a little bit of price. I don't know. When it comes to when it comes to like free market economics, at the end of the day, if people are willing to pay it, then companies are going to charge it, right? And it really falls on the populace for paying those prices, right? Because if they pay those prices, it justifies the price.
Like you're right in the sense that like for normal material goods, I can understand that, but like for like necessities, like plane travel is pretty much a necessity at this point. Like people need for jobs, for family, for whatever. Like it's pretty much a public service at this point. Like I don't know if like a private company should even be handling that. You know what I mean? Like there's so much greed and I don't know.
And that's probably why things like airlines like Iceland Air are so great because they're state owned.
Because that's a weird thing because they just make profit hand over fist. I mean, people talk about like after 9/11, people are like the airlines were going to do poorly. I'm pretty sure they got bailout money and then they cut all the costs and made record profits. Like they're the airlines who also got like paycheck protection programs and still laid people off with the COVID money they got.
Yeah, that's Man, I don't want to go off on a political tangent, but that's messed up, man. When public funds go to bail out private companies and the public doesn't benefit, that's fucked up.
Like if we're gonna bail you out, you guys had better provide better service. Right, that's literally our dollars that kept them afloat. But it is one of those things that I think. One thing that it's weird because sometimes like Americans will like stand up for certain things, but 9/11 really proved 9/11 and COVID proved just how many people in this country will literally just do anything they're told by the government if they think it's a reason. We still take off our shoes because a guy who had plastic explosives that never worked just tried to go in and got caught by security. They're just like, but now we do it like because before flying you could like walk people up to the gate, you could just hang out. Now they they'll yell at you for taking more than 30 seconds to get your bag out of your car. And
did you ever are you old enough to have flown before the TSA, John?
Yeah, that was good times,
dude. Yeah,
just a few times with family, and it was like a fun time.
Yeah, you just
was nice.
How old are you?
33. So I was right there early enough to remember it. Like
you'd have been like early teens or so.
Yeah,
probably. Yeah.
So like 11, around 10 or 11.
Yeah.
It's like
it was awesome, man. Like when I first started flying at like 18, so I'm so fucking old. There was only a metal detector. Yeah, everybody could walk with you, right? Like you said, right up to the gate. Like it was all cool. Then and the funny thing is that 9/11, I flew a week after 9/11 to France, and not an awesome time to travel. It was very nerve-wracking, especially because all the monitors in the airport at the time were like talking about how the Air Force was going to shoot down airliners if there was anything suspicious, right? And I'm like, maybe you shouldn't play that before we're getting on a plane. Oh, God. But the weird thing is like I landed in France, and France is like on high alert because of what happened in the United States, and they have like their National Guard or whatever paramilitary. Like submachine guns or like controlling traffic and shutting off sections and like doing all these kind of precautionary things. And leaving, they're going through your luggage in front of you, like everything, opening it up and coming. And I get back to the United States and they're like, "Hi, have a nice day." And it took like it took like a few years for the United States to actually respond internally to 9/11. It was so weird.
Which is crazy because people don't realize that pre 9/11 there was no TSA, border patrol, just like wasn't the thing it is now.
I was too young for that. I don't remember that.
This huge state apparatus that just like keeps moving. And the thing is like, I mean, we don't want to get too political, but it is just like that really proved what people would be willing to go through for like no justifiable reason. Because like you still have like people who generally you can kind of tell of like people who still wear masks these days, especially if they're not wearing KN95 masks. You're like, you bought into the propaganda so hard that like nothing could change your mind at this point. So like data.
I actually will wear a mask sometimes. I'll tell you why. If I am sick and I know that there are people around me, like in the gym that, are getting ready for competitions, but I still need to be at the gym, I will wear a mask not to cough onto the equipment and transfer my sickness around the gym, or I'll just not show up. But that's the only time I'll wear a mask now. It's just to stop my germs from spreading to other
I think
people.
that's a fair time to wear it when you're actually sick.
I think that's
I actually wear a mask. So I was in New Zealand January of 2020. I was on my way to Antarctica actually, and there's I've done some shit, seen some shit. And it's kind of like a big deal going into Antarctica. They have very limited medical facilities. And so any kind of like sickness that gets down there and it's close quarters, like just spreads like wildfire. And like they're really big, like they preach it big time. Like if you have any kind of sickness or anything, like let us know. we might not let you go. And so in January of 2020, I had some sniffles and like, I don't know if it was allergies or what it was. I went and got a mask and wore it for the same reason. Like, I don't want to get anybody sick. And when I walked around people, and ultimately they were like, it actually made them very nervous. And they're like, you're just going to stay here for a week until you're like better. Like, I'd go to like, maybe go to like the equivalent of, I guess I don't know what it's called. It's like the quick clinics or whatever the hell they are. And whatnot. And yeah, so I'm with you. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with like wearing a mask when you're sick to protect other people from your sickness, by all means. Yeah. And then a couple of months later, COVID like popped out and it was crazy.
Dude, it was crazy. I mean, like we were talking about this before we even started the podcast. Like Darren and I both did the Ronnie Coleman in 2020. It was my first show. And it was supposed to be in March. And I had just started trying strongman at all in January. And then, that's obviously when everything got shut down. So they pushed it back another 3 months. And we didn't know, like, it kept getting pushed back. And we didn't even know, like, I was driving up towards Dallas and I didn't know for sure if that show was even going to happen, because they were, the week of, they were talking about, mandates and one person only at the show with you and all kinds of different stuff. So we didn't even know that show was going to happen.
Yeah.
And
so that's awesome that you
competed there when you didn't even know each other and we didn't talk.
That's what's awesome. Like, we started talking before we started recording and you're like, oh, I didn't meet you at that. Is it Metal Mayhem? Is that what it's called? Metal Mayhem, yeah. And I'm like, no, I don't get to travel as much. And then we started talking and you mentioned the Ronnie Coleman in 2020. And I'm like, dude, I was there too. Like, we totally crossed paths and didn't know it. And like, that's a cool thing about Starman. My friend, Greg Enanciano out east, he was my judge in the year I won USS Nationals, and we talked and come to find out, like, we competed in the same weight class in Reno in SC Nationals in 2014. And it's like,
yeah, that's crazy, man.
Didn't know each other back then. And and I mean, Starman, like, you see a lot of people and cross paths with so many people. Yeah. That's like the cool thing. And once you connect, I mean, that's the best thing about Starman, is walking away with all the friendships. Like, the people that you meet is really, really like the biggest reward, I think, in Starman.
Yeah. I get really sad whenever I see these guys who go to shows and they take it so serious that they just, between every event, before and after, and they're all in their own head. They're trying to, stay in a little zone and block out everybody else. Like, I just, to me personally, that's like half the show is just hanging out with my buddies and having a good time and experiencing this competition with them. And I feel like if you're too closed off, like, you're losing a lot of that experience. But I kind of get it. Like, some people got to do what they got to do to keep their mindset. But for me, that, like, hanging out with everybody is a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think there's like a fine line. Like, when I first started Strongman back in 2008, and probably for a few years there, I just like what I enjoyed the most was being a fanboy of everybody else, right? And I would just scream at everybody and just be like, let's go. And then by Alice Stones, like, we always had Alice Stones at the fifth event, right? The Alice Stones, I was like just wasted, just burnt out, because I wasted so much energy screaming at everybody, right? And getting so excited. And when I started taking it a little bit more serious, I stopped doing that. But man, I still like to socialize and have a good time, have fun, and joke and bullshit with everybody.
There's like a 10, 15 minute window. Like, when you're warming up for an event, that's kind of when I start dialing in, getting hyped up and that kind of stuff. But like, when there's a lot of downtime, like, I'm going to go talk with my friends and hang out and talk shit and laugh and, whatever the case may be.
Right. Absolutely, man. You got to have fun. Cause like, I think there was a point where I was taking it too seriously, and I don't remember like the exact conversation. I just kind of remember sort of like a conversation with Mike Burke back. I used to train with Mike Burke. Here he's trained with our crew. And I don't know if you remember who Michael Burke is, but Mike Burke was number 4 strongman, I think, in 2000, world strongest man in 2014. Did really well in the Arnold. Great guy, like one of the most genuine people I've ever known, and like just great human beings. Like he's like, I go and have fun, man. You can't take it too seriously because you're just setting yourself up for disappointment, right? Like when you take it so seriously, you don't do well. Like you're just gonna like kick yourself down, and it's like you just gotta have fun and
double the like depressive feelings, you know.
Yeah.
Like not only ddid you not experience the show, but you also fucking lost.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. And like, yeah, you gotta have fun. Strongman's not. I mean, it's almost. There's only like a handful. Like I could probably count on one hand the number of people in strongman that are making a living, like an actual living off of competing in strongman, right? And so it's like, don't take it so seriously because it's not really that serious at the end of the day. You're not going and competing for $1 million, right? You're going to compete for a plastic trophy, bro. and a trophy and maybe a week of attaboys, and then it gets memory hold, and nobody remembers what you did.
Yep, exactly.
And absolutely nobody outside of strongman gives a fuck.
Oh yeah, no. And it's weird too because like now that I'm a pro, like my sister doesn't get it. Like she's always like, you're doing strongman, like when are you gonna get a real fucking job? And so like I finished nationals and I got my pro status, and I called her and I explained everything. She was like, okay, cool. So what does that mean? Like, it doesn't give a fuck. Like your brother's a pro strongman. Like say good job or something. Like shit.
Right. Yeah, family's like always the last one to care about strongman because like they don't really understand it. You're not making a lot of money doing it. Right? It's like we get a little bit of TV time, mostly on foreign networks, right? That nobody sees.
like I literally have to explain and be like, so the World's Strongest Man that they have on TV on CBS, like every like Christmas, I might be on that in a couple years. So like we're getting there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, let me know when it actually happens. Yeah.
Makes a big difference though. And I think the important thing, like you're saying, is like having fun with that journey and everything. Cause it's always crazy to me, the people who are perpetually like always posting about how they didn't do as well as they thought they did. And they were so serious at the time. And you're like, you had your headphones on the whole time and were ignoring people, no socializing. And then you're going to do a post about why your results weren't what you expected.
And everything for me has just been like, since I started this journey, it's been so much fun. Like, day one, walking into heavy metal for the first time, I met Austin. He was the first person I met pretty much. So like literally since day one, it's been shit talk. It's been, having a good time training. It's been like, meeting all these people and just hanging out. So like strongman, there is no strongman for me without just like, talking shit and having fun and enjoying hanging out with your buddies,
Yeah. That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
It breeds healthy competition. Like you all are just doing wild things out of that.
That's what I talk about all the time. Like you see how these guys would have like there's a big difference between like an unfriendly rival and like a brotherly rival. Like when there's a toxic aspect to it, like it really can get to you. But like when there's a real friendship rivalry, it can really push you past your normal limits. Like it'll really bring you into places where I don't think you can get without it. You know what I mean? And I contribute a lot of my growth in the past couple of years to having that with Austin and some other people.
Yeah, man.
Just having people push me, push me from above. Like Trey Mitchell always is inspiring me and pushing me, and he's a good buddy of mine now. And having Austin kind of on my level, and there's even some middleweight guys that are, that can outlift me in certain lifts. Like, and they push me, kind of from the back. So like it's good to have that community, and it's good to have that competitive atmosphere as long as it doesn't get too toxic.
Right.
Yeah. So. And that's a balance. I think some people kind of like take things far too personally, like they'll kind of like perceive all of it, when at the end of the day, I think it's that important thing of realizing, like, for most people, this is a hobby. There's not that much money in it. Like alienating people and being shitty to people for no reason, like there's no point to that and stuff. Like I can see of like fun joking around of like CJ Krause and like Tyler Davis. They were hilarious together and stuff. But you'll see other people who, for some reason, like all they do is just like shit talk the other athletes and everything, and just like do that weird vague posting where their stories are clearly referencing someone, but they won't say them by name. They'll be like, no one cares if you lifted an 18-inch, 796-pound lift. And you're like, just say the person. like you're like, why are you saying this? Like, you can kind of guess who people are talking about. Sometimes you're like, just say their name after a while. You're like, otherwise it's this goofy thing.
Me and Greek Goliath, Nico Chaparales, we were talking so much shit leading up to nationals, and like I genuinely didn't know if like we were actually like friends or not. And then like we get to nationals and we were just kind of hanging out and like talking shit, just and we became like really good buddies by the end of the show. We were talking so much shit leading up to nationals. It was hilarious.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a good dude though.
I think he likes. I get the impression that Nico just he's got like this. I mean, we've had him on the show and he talked a little bit about like the self-promotion thing. Yeah. And so he has this sort of online persona, right? That's reminiscent of WWF wrestler, right? And he really plays that. And if you watch, what was it? The Ragnarok games.
Yeah.
One of his interviews was just like, it was amazing. Like, I mean, it was one of the best interviews I've ever seen, and he's just like going off like WWF style, and I think it does rub some people the wrong way, right? Yeah. And but like I don't know who I was talking about this with recently. It was about Nico, and I'm like, dude, like he's actually a pretty decent guy. It's just like it's just his persona. He likes to. He's self-promoting. He's actually doing what a lot of athletes don't do. He's taking the opportunity and the platform to build a brand, and he realizes that social media, right? Nobody gives a shit on social media what you can do or what you have done, right? They care about how well you can entertain them, and that's it. Yeah. That's how you build following, right? Or being, I mean, there's some like unique niche, like coaches and stuff that I think do really well because of their niche, right? But but otherwise, like it's all about entertaining the masses.
And that's how you grow the sport too. Like if you want bigger prize spots, you gotta sell tickets. You gotta fill seats.
Yeah.
And he's done a good job with that for sure. Yeah. Especially like in the upper echelon. Like who really sells tickets, right? Like Evan Singleton sells tickets.
Yeah.
He is entertaining. He is always loud. He's always there. He's always put on a show. And like that's kind of what you got to do, and I feel like it's a winning formula for sure.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times people start to bash the people that are doing better than them, right?
Yeah,
and that's just at the end of the day, the stupid strongman drama that I wish would go away.
Yeah,
like let's support each other. Let's support people that are doing well, because it is still a niche sport, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of money in it. And the guys that are actually doing well and making money, like I don't think that's a really easy task.
No.
Honestly.
It usually takes a decade of barely making by just to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Dude, I mean, like, Eddie Hall was still turning wrenches until he won World's Strongest Man.
Yep.
Yeah. World's Strongest Man. He's still turning wrenches until he won. Right. And that was like, he capitalized on that and made it a turning point for him. And he's become very successful as a result. But dude, there's so little money. We should be celebrating the ones that managed to turn this sport into a career, a profitable career.
Yep.
Because that's tough. Like it was interesting. I remember a few years ago, like watching Rob Kearney talking about like the training he's trying to do for like the Arnold Classic, and he was like, yeah, I pushed my car, and it was like an old Honda Civic, and he was talking about his day job and stuff. And I don't think people always realize that these people have day jobs and stuff. Like it's interesting when you see our friend of the show, Atlas Power Shrug, people will be like, oh, it's easy to train all the time when you don't have a real job. It's like, no, he has a full-time job. We had to schedule our interviews around his job, and he did it in his car like before. But people will do this like weird thing. And the same with like some of like podcasts and stuff, is this idea that like this is the only thing I have going on. It's like, no, this is like a few hours of my week, and I have a whole other job and stuff I do. But it's this easy idea. I think like it's interesting when you see, and like they talk about the scarcity mindset versus like there's plenty to go around. You'll see these people who they're like, well, I could do that too if I had your situation, whatever it is. There's always this perception of like, well, if I had done this. And I remember like even years ago, sometimes I would do it of like, I don't have a college degree and everything. And I'd be like, if I had a college degree, I'd probably be doing something other than pizza and stuff. Still don't have a degree. Now I'm doing software because I found a way to get there and stuff. But it's easy. Some people let that whole thing like carry them through their lives of like, well, it would be nice if I had Nick's genetics or like Darren's genetics, but I just don't. And you're like,
you don't want my genetics. Trust me.
I was like, that's the thing. But I think it's interesting to see when people do that. Is this idea of this almost like bitterness about anyone who wins? Is this idea like Eddie can be obnoxious sometimes online and everything, but like for one, he has the skill to back it up, and two, like he really was.
Well,
like,
it's
crazy.
yeah. I mean, let's.
That's true. We can't compliment too much.
Boxing, no.
Oh yeah, no, don't that.
That was the most unirritating boxing match I've ever seen in my life.
Toxic rivalries. I'm like,
oh man, it was.
Oh man,
that was cringe for Eddie, man. So bad. And I mean, Thor still looked like an amateur, but he looked like he actually trained to box.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. So. See, Eddie's got some skills. Boxing was not one of
them. He's an entertainer, though. He's like doing all that stuff.
You know, I think too. Like I've always sort of wondered. I don't know that it's never really truly come out or anything, but Eddie Hall and Robert Oberst used to have this online thing too, where they would just like it was just mad shit talk, right? And everybody thought they hated each other. And then it came out eventually that they were just like really good friends and just trying to drum up exposure, right? And attention to make money. And I really wonder if that Eddie didn't take that same concept and turn it into his 7-figure contract with Thor, right? Because he learned a really good lesson with Robert Oberst. He should have. That kind of dramatic overplay of rivalry gets a lot of attention. And even though it was like an ultra amateur competition or bout against two people that nobody knew, like the number of people that tuned into that was astronomical.
Yeah,
it was crazy. And I really think that it had a lot to do with Eddie Hall's his just antics.
Mm-hmm.
It's entertaining. He puts butts in seats. That's the whole point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, like it's still like I'm not a big Eddie fan because I don't like the antics, but at the same time, it's like the dude knows how to put people in seats. He knows how to get people's attention. He draws a lot of exposure for strongman. He did for that particular fight. The dude's turned. He went from a wrench turner, right, working on diesels, to the guy's worth probably. I mean, he's definitely top 3 all-time richest strongman ever out of one win.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's something.
Yeah, actually, too, because like if you look way back in my old training videos, I was popping on a little Thor jersey. You know, I was a big Thor fan. Like he was a big inspiration when I first got in the sport. And I liked Eddie too. Like we're pretty similar in how we kind of talk shit. I feel like I'm a little less toxic. But like the whole boxing situation really turned me off to both of them, actually. Like I was kind of fans of both, and then after that whole thing went down and like that interview where they were both sitting at the table and they're like throwing shit at each other and like being nasty, I was like, yeah, both these guys are children. Like, yeah, they're strong. Yeah, I'm going to take what I can learn from both of them because, you know, they both put out a lot of information on the internet over the years of like, you know, eating and training and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm still gonna try and learn from them, but I'm not like Thor was the last like. Yeah, I was a fan of Thor.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
that's gone.
Yeah, no,
It'll be
I'm
interesting to see him coming back though.
I'm
If he
really interested to watch him at the Arnold. I think that it's going to be too heavy too soon, and he's either going to get hurt, hopefully not, but he's either going to get hurt or he's going to perform really bad. And I'm going to be there, so we'll get to watch that in person. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I unfollowed both of them.
Yeah,
at the boxing thing, like I was just I was done. I didn't care anymore.
Some of that was just a little too toxic. You know what I mean?
I agree. But man, they made a lot of money off of it.
That's true.
Is it really 34 million now?
People are saying 34 to 35 is the estimates I've verified on multiple websites. That's insane. Truly insane.
So he probably is the richest strongman.
Yeah, he has to be. I mean, like,
he's got to be.
But how can he be more successful than Brian when Brian is selling so much loot?
Eddie, I think for one, people support things a lot more in the UK and everything. Brian sells a ton of stuff, but it's like I think it's in our circle. It seems like a lot, but I don't think it's quite that like reach that like Cerberus has maybe. And also Eddie does like make good, better brand deals. I think
he does.
It's like Brian's thing of like trifecta, at least in my experience, wasn't that great and everything as far as like meals go and stuff. And I think like those brand deals are very important of how
who is Eddie even like who's he partnered with? I don't even know.
But not Boohoo Man. There's some multiple brands, and then he has his Beast brand, and now he has Beast Nutrition or something. So he started his own companies and stuff, but he has a ton of like things. Apparently it's gone up way more in the past few years because 2021 his net worth was just 5 million, which is still astonishing.
More than like
but I think his YouTube does better. I think both his YouTube channels, because his reactions are better. Because if you've watched Deadliest Lift, Brian reacted to him, and Brian's reaction was just terrible and boring, and Eddie's was genuinely hilarious. Like Eddie has funny reactions to things, and as much as like people hate his weird antics on Instagram because he does the same jokes these days all the time of like these memes, his traction is huge though, of literally millions and millions of views on Reels.
At the Shaw last year, he almost got me and Austin fucking kicked out because we were we were at the convention center, like next to the arena, and we were walking around and we were like listening to Brian talk on a little stage. And if you watch Eddie's video from the Shaw, he's like hiding behind me and Austin because we're like kind of in the back, and he's hiding behind me and Austin, and he's yelling to Brian behind us, and he's like talking shit. You know, he's like, "Hey, fat ass," and he's like talking from behind us, and so Brian like keeps looking at us, like thinking that it's us, and talking shit, and we're like, "No, it's Eddie behind us," and I'm like, "Eddie, fuck off! You're gonna get us kicked out of the open before you even get to compete." And so he starts laughing, then he goes off and like pulls down Brian's pants on the little statue, the little 3D printed statue that he had as signs his dick. You gotta go, bud. You gotta go.
That's crazy.
His videos from there were pretty great. I like the one where he had the plunger and went behind Nick Best and just jammed the plunger on his head. Nick Best was like walking around trying to get it on.
Well, I was actually talking to Nick Best when he did that, and he immediately like it just fell off. But he was like he put it back on for the camera and he was like trying to. Yeah, he wasn't like actually trying to pull it off. But then afterwards, I don't even know if he would want me to say this, but he was talking about how he's gonna order a big dildo and do that to Eddie next time, and just try and stick it on his forehead. Big dildo.
The memes, though, it's all about that views, because I think the biggest thing a lot of people miss is kind of this idea of like, there are guys doing really impressive things all over Instagram, but if you don't present things well, people won't notice it. Of like, you can post a video that says 900-pound deadlift, and if it's a 90-second video and the first 75 seconds are you preparing for the lift, no one's going to watch it. and stuff like that. And there are tons of people who do that. Like, it's amazing to me how many like you'll see people do these insane feats of strength and they just don't present it in a way that's going to go anywhere.
Yep.
And you're like,
me and Austin we've had a lot of conversations about this in the past few months, is really trying to step up our content game. Because he's in Giants Live now. He's he's pretty much in. I still have a little bit to go to consider myself like in that top echelon, but like there's going to be a point where we really need to start marketing ourselves, and we've been talking about it lately. We're gonna amp up our like video creation game, our Instagram, our all that stuff. Just put more effort into everything, and just try and grow not just as athletes but as like content creators, I guess, or like just what people expect to see whenever you're a high level strongman who's in public eye. You know what I mean?
Because that makes a difference. Of like, you have Jamal Browner getting invites because, for one, he's super strong, but also he has consistent content that's also out there. You see these people of like, you have reels, you have YouTube shorts, like getting that stuff out there, but a high quality version of it and stuff. Because like it either needs to be high quality, or you can go the deadliest lift route of just going insane, or like Tom Haviland of doing like a bit and stuff. But a lot of people don't like, it's this idea of like, you can be the strongest person, but if you're not like entertaining and everything, then you're not going to get invited. And you can be like Pau Dwyer and like, you're not even that entertaining, but some people like you and you're going to get invited because you just like do weird antics.
And fucking sick burn. Pau Dwyer, you're not even very entertaining.
Got him. He's gonna see this. He's gonna post an angry Instagram post.
Probably.
Oh yeah,
he posted some like crazy shit recently too.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Oh yeah, he had to get some of it taken down. I'm it's also impressive when like, because you realize that there's whole brand managers behind all of this. Like that's the interesting thing is like, it's interesting when people be super hard on these high level athletes for like everything being too much of a show. And I'm like, that's how people get paid though. Like that's what brings the eyes in and stuff. Because at the end of the day, like you can have like the heaviest show you want, but if things aren't presented properly, no one's gonna like pay attention to those things. And that's why,
when you're doing Giants Live, they like kind of give you like suggested posts. Like they'll basically like write your post for you and like give it to you and be like, we want it like this, and you can release it.
So I learned something potentially interesting today about Giants Live and World's Strongest Man. And I don't know how true this is yet. I haven't really dug into this, but I have a friend in Germany, and he kind of posted the question. He's Australian citizen. He married a girl in Germany. He's been in Germany for 8 years. He's not a German citizen, and he kind of posed the question like, if I compete at an international competition, who should I represent? Right? Should I represent Australia or should I represent Germany? And, we had some conversations back and forth, and he eventually reached out to the Australian Strongest Man promoter. That's their nationals, to try to kind of understand because man, I can't think of his name. It's like Jean-Stephen. He goes by Coco Strongman, right?
Oh yeah.
He's a French national, but he lives in Australia. And he won ASM, and he went on to, I don't know, Giants Live or World's Strongest Man, whatever, and represented France. And so there was like some questions like, why didn't he represent Australia? Like we needed some representation. And I mean, the story that I got, mind you, this totally, hearsay third party, but allegedly like World's Strongest Man will kind of determine some of that for you. Even though you may be, like him, an Australian now, they may already have Australian representation. They're like, no, we want you to represent a country that doesn't have representation.
Well, that's what Austin did whenever he went to Giants Live.
Jean-Stephen Carabouf.
Yeah, so Austin represented Mexico when he went to Giants Live.
Yeah,
but he's never lived in Mexico. Like, yes, he is Hispanic, but and his family is, and that's what Gabe Pena did as well. He lives in Texas, never lived in Mexico, but he represented Mexico. And that's kind of actually what I kind of want to do too. like my family came over from Italy in the 70s and the 80s. And so I'm a first generation American. I would like to represent Italy if I was doing these international shows. They just had Italy's Strongest Man a couple weeks ago. I was reaching out to them to see if I could do it any way to join it next year and go for the title of Italy's Strongest Man.
And then represent Italy afterwards.
And represent Italy at Giant Slab and at World.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and that was kind of part of the conversation. Like if you're able to win a national, like for you, Italy's Strongest Man, perhaps it makes sense to represent Italy.
Yeah.
But I guess my understanding is that maybe you might have a choice.
Yeah.
World's Strongest Man might say, if you're going to compete here, we've got enough American representation, right? We want you to they might just say, represent Italy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Well, because what was I going to say? They gave Austin a choice. You can represent America or Mexico.
Okay. Nice.
But it was kind of like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We need more.
Right.
Because Gabe Pena was kind of their one Mexico representative.
Right.
And he kind of stepped back a little bit. And so Austin was like, yeah, I'll take that spot. And he's just kind of ran with it. And he won World's Strongest Latino, which obviously helped play into that.
Obviously.
So he's been working with that, and it's been going great for him.
Yeah,
but
nice.
I don't want to knock on wood. Hopefully that's his entry to Worlds. Like that would be his foot in the door for Worlds, is to be that sort of representation spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. He absolutely deserves to go. He's a strong motherfucker.
Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like there are so many strong motherfuckers that are coming up that like you need something that kind of sets you apart to really get your foot in the door above other people. You know what I mean? And now that's representation of whatever country that you can.
Right. And I mean, I don't know, but I'm sure it helps with the branding of World's Strongest Man too, right? Mm-hmm. Because then it at least it gives the appearance that this is a world competition. And I think the reality is that there is that strongman, like the top competitors are heavily weighted to the US and the UK.
Yeah.
Right.
It's definitely saturated. Yeah.
Very saturated. And if there isn't any differentiation, it just ends up being the USA versus the UK. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's like World's Strongest Nation. And I think kind of like we were saying, as far as like trying to create a persona and stuff, at the end of the day, with an oversaturated market like this, it is those differentiators. If you have like Jacob McBride being type 1 diabetic, like that's very inspirational to people and stuff, because it is this idea of like representation and everything, because it does, like, it makes you stand out and stuff. We have our Never Masters athlete here who's 44 years old and still doing open.
Yeah, I'm going to be 45 next month, dude.
45. Oh my God.
Literally in a month and 3 days.
That's
Do you know how wild that is? Like, so many people will literally, all of my friends who are like right now late 30s, they're like, I can't wait to compete as a Masters. And then you have Darren.
Maybe I should change my Instagram handle to World's Strongest Never Master. It's my key to instant Instagram famousness or whatever.
Because sometimes it does feel a bit weird seeing the competitions where it's like, so as soon as you turn 39 or 40, you go from like your deadlift weights like 600-700 pounds to suddenly 500 some. You're like, that year shouldn't make that much of a difference, like some of the weights they'll choose for Masters and everything. Right. But I think a lot of times, like, it is kind of a hobby, so I can understand like trying to pull back because you don't want to get injured and stuff. But I think those differentiators, because like online, there's like literally people talk about like trillions of hours of content just being put out there and stuff. And you have this idea of like some of the strongest people out there just like don't necessarily put that much effort into their social media. And I get it, because it is like,
it is hard,
a taxing thing. It is hard and stuff. As someone who's briefly deactivated my personal Instagram right now, it is like, because it is you have to realize like part of what's hard for a lot of people, especially like if you're born 1990 or after, you have companies out there that'll have like a brand manager who will literally be representing like some like Fritos or something, trying to get like a fraction of the reach that like some accounts will, who are just doing it for free and stuff. So it is like, it's hard being your own brand manager and stuff, but I think it can make that difference, especially if you're going to these like larger shows and stuff. Like people are saying those small things of like, don't show your long setup, have nice captions, and like film nice. Of like, the one thing that the powerlifters do have right, we talked about, is like they all film with like HD cameras and like film good quality reels. They're not like, they're not, I don't know how many people would just film these tiny little landscape videos of like amazing feats of strength, but like you can barely see it in the whole setup.
You do like the Olympic lifters do and just slow everything down to like slow motion.
Yeah,
it's true, and it's the same 3 different songs. It's like Trampoline by Saeed or whatever, and it's that slow
like all of your videos are perfect form, bro.
Yeah.
We just watch it in normal speed.
Like when they'll show it in normal speed and then there'll be like slower speed and even slower. So
right.
You can
oh
watch,
my God.
You can watch. I do like the one person I like watching in slow motion is just Lasha's Power. Is that slow motion of watching his belly just ripple up explosively and then he'll just like catch the snatch. Because it's just also, it's wild to watch someone that size just throw things up. He'll just like muscle snatch like 300 something.
And like I gotta make a comment to this. Like there's a quote. So I did we did a little photo shoot down in Colorado Springs last weekend. This guy's trying to get in, like he's a phenomenal photographer, trying to break into sports. And no fault to him. But he posted a quote from Brian Shaw that said something to the effect of like, and I guess I didn't even know this was a quote from Brian Shaw. I haven't validated it. It may not be. I hope it's not, honestly, because it said something to the effect. He's like, you see those weightlifters over there? Like, how can you call any of them the world's strongest man if they can't walk over and pick up a car? And I'm like, can you clean and jerk 585 pounds? I didn't think so. Like, I mean, Loss is close to 600 pounds, man. I think he can do it. He just hasn't.
Aspects to strength too, though.
Yeah,
there are so many different ways you can test it. It's insane, even just trying to think of like an actual best representation of what the world's strongest man is. You know what I mean? Like,
right. That's why it's so important to like. I think. One thing I wish they'd get away from is doing these goofy, huge contraptions that, in my mind, take away from the athlete. Of what we need more is more athlete interviews. So you have that like play, so people can get to know these people as characters or like as people, but also like having more like those fun events of like people do want to watch something crazy like that, because it would be interesting to like. I know it would be really hard to do, but it would be interesting to see like World's Strongest Man or something, like doing lanes of like a very explosive event and stuff, rather than these like contraptions that like it looks cool and some people may like it, but like in my mind it's not testing things quite as well as maybe something else could go. I'm not saying that everyone has to have like a snatch ladder where they see how heavy they can do the biggest press, because a lot of strong men just like don't use the leg drive and stuff. I don't know how to use leg drive, so I put myself in that camp. But I think it's this like interesting concept of like, I think you have to like differentiate yourself through those things. And it's interesting to be able to see of like Lucas Hatton being able to do a decent looking split jerk at that size and stuff of like these things people will notice and everything. He's someone who they actually did do a slow motion version of him doing it. Him and Strongman Core had like a reel out there. And you're like, that's actually pretty cool with the Hummer tires. Like,
yeah.
And I think that's an interesting thing of like Strongman Corp did a good job of like doing visually appealing events that are relatively easy to set up.
Yeah.
Rather than doing these like single lane things and stuff, like doing that.
Yeah. Strongman Corp is just it's like they're finally starting to listen, I think. Of course,
they are super receptive.
Because I'm a pro now, I don't have to do any more Strongman Corp. It is what it is.
Well, you got to do Arnold, man. That is Strongman Corp.
Yep.
I thought Rogan bought the Arnold now. The Strongman Classic is a Rogue thing.
No, that's the pro show, but
the pro show.
Amateur World Championship.
But I mean, I think Strongman Corp has seen some good positive change. I mean, there's really great people like James Deffenbaugh, who's been, he's been involved for a few years now, but I think he's becoming more and more involved and having more influence in the way things are run. I know he's a major contributor to the equipment these days. I know he just posted recently that he put on like 4,000 and some odd miles on his vehicle, towing equipment around to 3 of the biggest SC shows of the year here in the last month or so. So I mean, there's, I think it all kind of boils down always like having the right people in the right place. And I mean, Strongman Corp's been around for a very long time. I think they started in 95-ish. They've seen a lot of changes over the years. And I think they're improving for the better these days. Again, having good people in the right place. Hopefully they stay and don't get burned out and and abused. But
I do have a little bone to pick with Deffenbaugh though.
Yeah,
we showed up to Nationals, right? And we're like checking out all the equipment on the check-in day, and like we walked into the back, and I'm trying to look at all the stones, and it looks like that day that we were checking them out, it looked like he had just dug them out of his backyard the night before. They were like covered in mud to the top, covered in mulch. Like they were just the nastiest stones that I've ever seen in my life. And like they tried to clean them up a little bit, but I just got really lucky. I ended up winning the stone event at Nationals, but I just got really lucky that I was one of the last people to touch it because it was just so dirty in the beginning. Yeah. And the stone, it was like a 380 or 390 stone that we had to do for reps over a bar at the end of a little medley. And I think there was only 1 or 2 other guys that even got that stone. And the first guy that lapped it, we were all sitting there watching, and the first guy that lapped it, he like puts his arms on the top of the stone. You could see these big puffs of dust from either side of his arms, and it was just like, oh my God.
So like I hear you. It sucks like when you get to that level of competition that like you want to have good equipment, and that probably is a bit of a failure of the organization itself. But like it's one guy that poured all of those stones, built all that equipment, loaded it himself, hauled it to the show, right? Probably also had a big part to play in the, creating a really well thought out score sheet that ensured that everything was going to be done well and timely, right? I'm sure he had a lot of work with volunteers, getting things organized. Strongman is, I think we're all kind of guilty. I've been guilty many times of having really high expectations and forgetting about the amount of thankless time, unpaid time that a lot of promoters, volunteers put into Strongman. We want to have really good shows. We're paying a lot of money to be there, right? But at the end of the day, they're putting a lot of time, not making any money, putting a lot of money into it to allow athletes to have a good, as best of an experience as they can muster on a very, very little budget. It's.
No, I have a lot of respect for James. I like the ball a little bit.
Yeah. So
have him on the show. We
need to. I need to reach out to him again. I don't know what happened. We were going to have him on the show and communication fell through, but
it's also apps are also just the worst these days because it started happening to me now on text. Sometimes I'll get messages and they're already marked as read because I swiped the notification. I didn't actually check it. And like, it actually, like, I send messages to Nick and like, you just didn't see them on my personal thing. And I would literally send them minutes before sending them from the World's Strongest Opinions thing. Yeah. And they would just go through as read.
The WSO account would pop up on my phone and the John's personal ones wouldn't. It was weird.
Yeah.
Literally tested it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's always hard with that communication stuff. And I think it's always good to like point out that thing with promoters, because it's still like, it's one of, that's the reason I made it into a reel, was like Lynn talking about how he had to do this for 8 or 9 years, losing money. He actually said one year he lost $12,000 doing shows. It's like, that's a lot. And like people, I get that like OSG is expensive and everything, but like he's worked really hard to get to that point.
Yeah.
So, like there's a lot that goes on, because you don't always realize how much of this stuff of like, you're actually thinking of like staff and like places, all these things. There can be a lot of like things that go on. And I think people don't always realize that, because it is this idea of like, people will think this is your whole thing, when so many people, that's not their whole thing. When you find out that Lynn, up until last year, was working as a manager at a software company, like that's a demanding job. And when you work from home or are online, your work follows you everywhere. My phone, I can actually like look at code on my phone and do things. So like, there's no excuse not to be like doing stuff if I need to. If like one of my coworkers is in New Zealand, like he's like, hey, can you look at this? I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll look at it. It's 11 p.m. Like I'll get it in and stuff. But I think people don't always like realize that for promoters too, like we were saying with athletes, of like, for so many people, you have to do this for over a decade or like years and years to get to the point where you can make money doing it and stuff. Of like, especially too, if you're not the best at like coaching, because not everyone wants to be a coach and stuff. So that can be hard of like, if that's your primary thing of, Darren is not a fan of coaching, because it is like, it takes a certain skill set. So it's interesting when like people talk about like ways to make it as an athlete. It's like, for one, coaching helps a lot of people, but like those differentiators of like make appealing content. Like you're a fun person to talk to and everything. So it was great of like, because we've talked for a long time. It was funny when Austin was like, hey, can I introduce you to Nick? I was like, I know Nick. I was like, you made me that cool little like the plastic thing that sharpened everything that the TSA took away from me. So that's another reason to be fit for the TSA.
I sold so many of them, and I've never heard of another one getting taken.
Yeah, no, the TSA hates me. They swipe my shoes these days. They swipe my hands. They rifle through my bags.
Wow. They always they always have to like pat down the inside of my thighs very close to my junk for some reason. And I'm like, I'm not packing enough for them to do that, but they like to. I don't get it. It was like,
also for context for people who are watching the podcast, so I paid for my college degree by making custom knives and
nice
jewelry and other things. So that's what I'm talking about. I sold them it's like a self-defense pick that I made back in the day. I don't do it anymore. I'm a coach now, but at Heavy Metal Fist.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So did you try to carry it on? Is that why they took it from you?
I forgot that it was in my
so they
fanny pack,
which is a non-magnetic material, but it's stronger than fiberglass. And I would make them into like a pick, and you put them on a necklace there's no metal on them, and you should be able to carry them onto a plane. And I've carried mine. I've had mine for years. I've got it around here somewhere, but I've had mine for years. I've gone on countless flights, and they've never even looked at it twice.
So
I sold hundreds of those things. And so the whole premise was it's a non-magnetic self-defense tool. You know what I mean? Like a force multiplier. So you could bring it into courthouses, you could bring it into concerts, you could anywhere that like tries to take your weapons from you, you have a force multiplier to protect yourself.
Sure.
And I sold hundreds of them, and I've never heard of any of them getting their shit taken away.
No, so they took it on my flight out. And then on the way back, I had a bottle opener that was a Shadow of Mordor. Like it's a Warhammer with a little like, it's just a thing that I got from GameStop. Like with my rewards, it's not anything. They took that away from me on the way back from Virginia. What the fuck? So I lost the pick on the way there and lost my keychain. It's just a bottle opener. They were like, well, it's sharp on the side. It literally, I was like, if your plane can, I wanted to tell the guy, be like, if your plane can be taken over by a guy who weighs exactly 200 pounds with a little bottle opener, I think you have more problems than just me. Because I was like, I don't know though. It's always people who for some reason want to like exercise their authority and stuff. So it's like, apparently I just give those vibes.
It's actually really funny that you bring it up, that you're talking about like Caliburn hammer.
Yeah.
I literally, I had one of those back in the day. Whenever Shadow of Mordor came out, dude,
Yeah.
I'm a big Lord of the Rings guy. I had the exact Celebrimor hammer bottle opener that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, they took that. Can you imagine? Like, there's no way you could do that. Also, Lord of the Rings is great. Rings of Power is not great. And you actually warned me not to watch it, so I'm glad that I did not watch Rings of Power.
Yeah. I couldn't do it.
Biggest disappointment. I literally was laughing. It genuinely hurt me to watch Rings of Power. It was so bad.
Dude, I was like, it's the same for The Wheel of Time. I really enjoyed it, the Robert Jordan books, and I tried to watch Wheel of Time, and it was so freaking awful. I couldn't get through an episode. I'm just like, this is absolutely nothing that I perceived from at all.
Like Andy and I did actually enjoy Wheel of Time, so
really, I just couldn't watch it, man.
True. I think it's been so long since I watched it that I was kind of divorced from it, so I kind of remember some things that are like, but it also like wasn't as much like a personal thing. But it's like, so that's one of those things that they like to butcher fantasy things, like the Chronicles of the Sword of Shannara.
That Rings of Power was trash, and I got like, yeah, it's trash, or like a couple people were like, no, dude, I liked it so much, and I asked them, I was like, okay, well, do you know anything about Lord of the Rings? And they're like, no, but it was entertaining. And I was like, okay, well, if you know anything about Lord of the Rings, you know that the show, the producers didn't like, it's not Lord of the Rings. Like they just didn't get it. They didn't read the books or whatever. But like the people who
they didn't read the Tolkien lore, man.
Yeah, or watch the movies. Like the couple people that said that they liked Rings of Power were like, all that they had watched of Lord of the Rings was The Hobbit. That's all they knew. Like they had no real sense of what Lord of the Rings was, what the books was about, what Tolkien was about. And so like they're just watching Rings of Power for like the entertainment aspect, which is like cool, I guess. Even though it wasn't even really that entertaining. But like they didn't have that disappointment of like understanding just how big of a letdown it was to actual Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. You mentioned Shannara Chronicles, man. I actually like that.
Yeah.
The acting was really terrible. Like really terrible. But the story was actually okay.
I think I watched it. I don't remember.
It was weird because it was on MTV or Vice, one of those ones. Because the weird thing was like they didn't do everything looked too perfect and everything. Yeah. So it was one of those things that like it didn't look the grimy the way like things should. But like I think it's one of those things that for some reason there's a portion of people who have entered the entertainment industry who for some reason don't like magic and don't like lore, but for some reason will work on fantasy projects like David, the two guys who wrote what was it, the Game of Thrones movies, the last season, because they could just freewheel it. They were like, we don't like magic, so we're not going to reference the faceless thing. We're not going to reference these powers. We're not going to do. And at the end, they're like, who has a better story than Bran? And you're like, what are you talking about? We all saw the stories of these characters. But it's one of those weird things where you realize, like, if you don't have respect for that lore and stuff, and you're just like freewheeling it, because they're like, you stuck with us for 7 seasons. Like we can just make a 8th season that's 6 episodes for no reason. They just could have made a longer thing. You're like,
well, weren't they trying to like go do a Star Wars thing?
I'm glad that they actually lost all their other opportunities for dropping the ball.
Season 8 was such a fucking abject failure. They got kicked off of their Star Wars project because season 8 was so poorly.
Yeah, thank God for that.
That was the best.
Yeah, because that's also Star Wars is one of those things that just has gotten So I mean,
that's space magic. So like, better get used to it, boys.
That's true. So I'm like, there's some of the newer movies haven't been quite like what I'd appreciate.
Don't even get me started on that
stuff, because it's like you thought the prequels were disappointing. The prequels were actually pretty decent in retrospect.
Pretty good compared to the shit that's getting pumped out now.
Yeah, but it's kind of like how we like to do as a culture and everything. Each precedent's slightly worse than the one before it. Each series is slightly worse.
I've kind of always liked the prequels. Like I never really had a problem with it. Like I always liked like the lightsaber battles, and like I didn't even really have a problem with Jar Jar Binks, to be honest.
Yeah,
It's kind of what I grew up with. So like I didn't really have a problem with it. You know what I mean?
I can see that, like a part of it, because how old are you exactly?
28.
Okay, so that's the difference of like if you were like a teenager
Yeah.
doing it versus like a child watching the prequels, like that makes a big difference. And then if you're Darren, you're in your 20s watching the prequels and you have a very different experience.
If you're Darren, you saw the original fucking Star Wars.
Dude, they used to play like the original Star Wars every Christmas, like the whole trilogy. That was Christmas time for me. That and the Christmas Story, Star Wars and Christmas Story.
Hell yeah.
That's actually pretty great. The Star Wars Christmas special is one of the wildest things to watch that with the Ewoks and the whole like thing. But it is this like idea of you kind of like have to tie it back in strongman of a lot of people don't always know like the history and all this stuff that's like gone into it. So they don't always appreciate like how shows are these days because you compare it to like the perfect situation and stuff. But it's like things have come a long way in the sport. And stuff overall. And it is like it can be challenging and stuff at times, but like at least people are receptive. Like here in Texas, Strongman Corp, like the shows are amazing. Like they're very well organized and like presented a way that like feels professional, which really is nice for the athletes.
That's what we were really. That's what when we threw Metal Mayhem. That's really one of the big things was spectacle and organization. So I hope it came through. John, you were there.
It did. I was a big fan of that and everything. I was like, because I think that makes the biggest difference. If I think trying to, like Darren's always said, of like, for some reason, the sport views athletes as the source of income, not spectators. And it's like having an audience who buys into the merch and does these things. That's how you really make it and stuff. And Brian Shaw makes more money on YouTube than he ever did in any show he ever did.
Absolutely, man.
And stuff. And that's an audience. That's an active audience. Like, it's always interesting when people will say like, oh, just not enough people are interested. You're like, some of these streams are getting millions of views and stuff. Like, surely you can get people to show up to something. And it was great to see the battle at the Alamo City. He said the turnout was bigger than it, like double what it was the year before. And that makes a big difference if you have 500 people to come watch an event and stuff. There was a whole other things going on and stuff too, but that's a huge amount of people being exposed to.
Yeah, and if you notice too, like when we were doing the deadlifts, we were doing 2 lanes, but we would always have one lane going and the other lane like resetting, so that the audience always had something to watch. And then we would have like an event set up to the side so that we could get the next event cleared out or reset up on the other half. So we always had something going on so that people weren't just like sitting around watching nothing happen. So we really wanted to keep it fluid and keep it moving so that people who were there would stay and watch the whole time.
And it went smoothly and stuff. Because like Darren says, how many people, and that's also what sometimes makes families not as excited about Strongman. If their only experience has been a 12-hour event that just like ran haphazardly with literally hours between events, sometimes you're like, that's too much for people.
Yeah. Well, one of the only events that my sisters come to is was a couple years ago, Pillars of Strength that the Strengthville guys put on. And,
oh, nice.
And they came and it was hot and it was horrible. And so they stayed for the press medley, which was the first event, and they stayed for I think the deadlift. And then they literally were like, "It's too hot. We're uncomfortable. Like we got to go." So that's all of their experience of strongman is just
Yeah, that sucks, man. That's unfortunate. That just seems to be. They always kind of say that sort of the unfortunate thing about strongman is the exposure the vast majority of people get, especially in the United States, is to the small competitions that a lot of them, unfortunately, like I was just talking about promoters who do like a really, really good job, and we should celebrate those guys. But then unfortunately we have organizations that don't have standards and allow anybody to run shows. And so like a lot of people get exposure to, I'm not saying the show you were at was poorly run, but like there is a lot of poorly run shows, right? In not great venues. They're not really spectator friendly. They go on for hours and hours and hours. And that's like the experience that a lot of people, including potential sponsors, have of strongman. And And I think it's a real roadblock to growing the sport from a sponsorship perspective, because the expectation, the experience, right, preconceived notion of the general public, what little experience they've had with strongman is like, this isn't going to be it's going to be hard to watch. It's going to be a long day. It's going to be hot. It's going to be miserable. And yeah, I think it's unfortunate.
It's a disastrous combo when like all you've seen is a poorly run local show, and one of the most viral strongman moments of the past calendar year has been a guy almost getting his head busted in by Hercules holds. You're like, yeah, that's literally people. They either know bad shows or we'll see something like that where you're like, it turns out that they still tried to run events after that, tried to sweep up the pool of blood because there's a massive pool of it, tried to just like brush it off. You're like, that's insane. It's like, yeah. So it's like, you want those positive experiences for people. So they're not like strongman is either the guys at the very, very top or poorly run local shows or people almost getting decapitated.
Yeah.
So it's like that makes a big difference.
Hey guys, I don't want to be I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but we're like pushing an hour and 35 minutes. It's getting pretty late. Would like to wrap it up. We usually try to keep it under an hour, where we never do. We never. No, it's not your bad. We like we like talking to you, Nick. That's great. This is a compliment that we've lasted this long with you. So, really appreciate you coming on.
Of course.
Any closing words where fans can find you? Any, pitch your coaching business, whatever you want to do.
I'm on Instagram at Nick Guardione. So just how it's spelled right here with no spaces. I coach at Heavy Metal Fit. So if you want programming, you want to be taught strongman events, you want one-on-one coaching, whatever you need.
In San Antonio, Texas, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
There we are.
Awesome, man.
But if you want online programming, I'll write you programs for wherever in the world you are.
Badass.
Yeah. I just want to thank you guys having me out. I love what World Strong Experience is doing. I think bringing people onto the show and just letting people get to know them is huge for the sport.
Yeah.
And it just makes people feel good, and it makes the athletes that you're highlighting feel good. So shout out to you guys as well.
Thanks, man. Dude, it was a pleasure having you on. Dude, wish you the very best. Good luck at the Arnold, man. Looking forward to seeing it on the podium, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks, boys.
All right.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and follow us on Instagram for updates. We'll catch you next time on World's Strongest Opinions.